documents who was in attendance at the meeting.
All right, I'm ready. Thank you. We're recording.
The Planning Commission meeting for the City of Piqua for Tuesday, 14 March 2023 is called to order. The first thing I'd like to cover is we will be conducting the meeting using a modified Robert Rules of Order. The way that'll work is we'll ask the city staff to read the resolution. Following the reading of the resolution, there will be a city staff report. Then there will be discussion of the commissioners with the city staff. After that time, we'll ask the applicant, if present, to come forward to the podium here. Every time you come forward to the podium, please state your name and address. We'll ask the applicant, if present, to come forward to the podium, present any factual information that they would like to present to the commission. There will be discussion of the commissioners with the applicant. After that is concluded, we'll ask anyone present who is for or against a resolution to come forward, go at the podium, give their name, address, and present any information they'd like to present to the commission, after which time we'll have discussion. We'll a commissioner will make a motion, second, and then we'll vote, and then the resolution will either pass or fail. At this time, if there are no objections to the aforementioned meeting procedures, would everyone please stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in? Let it be known that all persons present to provide testimony at this 14 March 2023 meeting of the Planning Commission hereby swear or affirm said testimony will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth. All those in agreement, please say I do.
I do.
All those opposed, please say opposed. Thank you. You may be seated. The first order of business is the roll call. If you could make a roll call, please.
Sure. Gary Koenig.
Present.
Shannon Brandon.
Here.
Brad Bupp.
Here.
Eddie Harvey.
Here.
Joe Wilson.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum to conduct the meeting. At this time, the next agenda item is the meeting minutes from the February 14th, 2023 meeting of the commissioners. Are there any additions, subtractions, or comments or recommendations in regards to the meeting minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the February 14th, 2023 meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
The meeting minutes of February 14th, 2023 are approved. There is no old business. Moving on to new business. Now, in this meeting, we have two certificates of appropriateness. We're going to go ahead and change the agenda a little bit, and we'll cover Resolution PC 8-23, which is a certificate of appropriateness. And then we'll go to the last item on the agenda and bring it up to the second item, and that'll be resolution number PC 13-23. We'll handle both certificates of appropriateness first. If you could read the resolution for PC 8-23.
A resolution for a request for a certificate of appropriateness for 418 North Main Street. This is for a new awning. I have up on the screen and also in your packet a view of 418 North Main Street. It currently hosts Biker's Closet. Previously, there was a certificate of appropriateness issued for facade paint to do a darker gray color on the facade. The request today is to replace the existing awning with a black awning, and that would be straight without scallops. It would still be tightly fitted around the frame, and that's the extent of the request today. I did ask for any updates on painting the facade, if that's going to continue to happen, and the current tenant who is in there would like to still do that, but I think due to some health issues, things have been delayed. So evaluating that, I think that the black awning would look perfectly fine with the color that it has now, and it would also go well with a future facade change. We have other very similar and very nice looking awnings in the downtown historic district. So staff recommends approval of the request.
Any questions of the commissioners? Hearing none, is the applicant present? Does anyone want to speak for or against resolution number PC 8-23? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I'll move to adopt resolution PC 8-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt resolution PC 8-23. Could you poll the commissioners?
Gary Koenig,
Aye.
Shannon Brandon,
Aye.
Brad Bupp,
Aye.
Eddie Harvey,
Aye.
Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number PC 8-23 is approved.
All right.
If you could read resolution number PC 13-23.
Sure. PC 13-23, a resolution to request a certificate of appropriateness for 523 North Main Street for facade changes and window installation. I want to pull it up so that everybody could see the building I'm talking about. All right. This was an interesting one because there was not a lot of information at the library historic office for this building, but there's information for just north and south of it. So if anybody present knows some good stories, I think that would actually really augment this. So the building in question is right here. It's the Wine and Silvers building. And I will head in. Planning commissioners, this was at the very, very end of your packet, so if you're looking for the staff report and pictures, that's where it'll be. Mr. I'm sorry, I don't know how to say this. Jagir, thank you so much, of Midwest Maintenance has applied for a certificate of appropriateness for 523 North Main Street, and this is on behalf of the property owner. The proposed work includes removing the metal siding from the building, installing hardy board siding instead of wood siding on the facade, installing 2 bay windows on the second floor, and then another one around the corner here. Installing a new awning, new aluminum storefront, the whole storefront windows and doors, coating the standing seam roof, and repairing the gutter and replacing a downspout. The applicant is here to answer questions about color, but the applicant did provide some initial investigative analysis on what's going on with the building and what they could sort of conclude from their historic research and looking over it. So the area just to the south that has the kind of metal structure there is was evidently a passage to the canal from Main Street previously. There is some evidence that there were windows on the second floor, which I think makes perfect sense. They've evidently been bricked over, and there's no evidence of any masonry anywhere on the building. I looked for information on the structure, what historic records there are, and I can't get any pictures that predate that question. I'm not even sure what that business was, but I really want to know what the question mark business was that was there in the 70s. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but there was a huge, large question mark sign where the projecting sign is now. And Mr. Schmidlap, who I contacted a few doors down, he also went to the library and did some more research, and I at least know that the building existed at 1940. It seems like it's much older than that, but I don't have any further evidence. Very interested in what other people might have to say about the building. It's kind of more fun when you don't know. So I think that this improvement is a real improvement. I think that it looks very stark and out of place to not have upper story windows at all. I think a lot of the facade that's there is, harkens back to what people were doing to these buildings in the 70s and really is out of date and out of touch at this time. And once you add windows to the upper story, you really complete the pattern look of the Main Street block on this corridor. Staff recommends approval of the request.
Any questions of the commissioners?
Well, it was an alcohol selling establishment,
Okay.
and no doubt about that. And it's pretty ugly the way it is now.
Any other comments from the commissioners?
I assume the windows that are indicated here will be placed, symmetrically on the facade, correct?
The openings are still existing on the interior.
Come on up.
Yeah, state your name and address, too.
My name is Jamie Jagir with Midwest Maintenance. So Katie Huber asked me to come in and do an evaluation on the building. And what I have found is there is no evidence of any masonry except in the window openings. What you can see is when that garage was put up, whoever owned that building owned the building next door because they had a connecting wing. So when you go upstairs, you can see the actual brick that are on the garage on the inside. That's the only brick on the building. So that's telling me that this is the only building downtown that's probably wood-sided. Since wood siding is not good anymore, it's most of your wood species are pretty much junk, I'm gonna recommend using hardy board. The windows, there's also windows on the side. Because of the brick pattern, I can't put the same size windows in, so we're gonna go ahead and put just a smaller window in, just so she has some kind of window light in upstairs, so when she eventually goes to do the work upstairs. That awning will come off, that's on there now, the new awning will be put on, the storefront will be replaced. And then, that's about it.
That doesn't answer the question too well, but the window placement looks a little odd like it's shown with the red
Oh,
line.
yes, the windows, they're inside, they're still.
I understand, but are they symmetrically placed on the facade?
I can't tell you that.
They don't follow these boxes, I assume?
No, they do not follow the boxes.
Oh, okay, that's what I wondered.
That's just informational for you, but on the inside, I'll be forced to follow where the windows were originally.
That's good. And then the window on the side is a new one.
A new one, but it's gonna be in part of the old opening. On the inside, the arches are still there where the window used to be, but because of the roof that's on there now, I won't be able to do this. I'll have to alter that one a little bit.
Is it in the middle?
It's almost where that bump out is.
Oh,
You can
towards
see
the
it.
front.
No, on the side. See where there's like a little line going vertical up and
Oh, okay,
There's actually a bump out right there.
I see.
As far as the awning goes, will the awning be like a little more, I don't know, proportionate to the building, like the way it sticks out? It just looks like the awning that's there now it looks like it's about this big.
It is.
and It's
The
like
awning is in the
stubby.
pack that I gave you guys.
Is that sunbrella fabric?
Yep.
Good.
And then the colors I also gave you on the pictures show the base and the basically trim of what the colors will be on the siding. Which is light mist color for the base, for the body of the, and then the Arctic white is the trim. Awning color would be smoke, as seen in the photo.
Would you mind passing that forward to them? I don't think that made it in.
No, we haven't.
I
Oh, you
gave
do?
it to 'em
Okay, good.
for your
Oh,
review.
thank you. You already provided it.
So it shows that the awning looks like it's gonna come out from the building. Is that 3 feet or 3 inches?
It's come out the building 1 foot 6 inches, 3 foot.
Okay, so that's, comes out more than what the existing awning
Yes.
does now? Okay,
Yes.
that's, okay, all right.
Any other questions of the commissioners? Do you have anything else to present?
No? I
Thanks,
mean,
sir.
after we did Lucky's with the same owner, she decided she wanted me to come look at this one.
They what?
We did Lucky's for her,
Uh-huh,
and that's when she came and had us look at this one, after we got done with that.
very good. Okay, thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else present want to present information either for or against resolution number PC 13-23? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on resolution number PC 13-23. The Planning Commission has studied the request, conducted a public hearing on the matter, and has established as fact that the proposed change preserves distinctive stylistic features and examples of skilled craftsmanship of historic buildings and other historic assets, achieves the high design quality sought within the downtown historic district, is compatible with the general economic development policies of the city, will not threaten the general health, safety, and welfare of the public or properties affected, and conforms to all other applicable plans, policies, and regulations of the city. This time, could you poll the commissioners?
Gary Koenig,
Aye.
Shannon Brandon,
Aye.
Brad Bupp,
Aye.
Eddie Harvey,
Aye.
Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number PC 13-23 is approved. Now let's move on to resolution number PC 9-23.
A resolution requesting a recommendation for the removal of Title 15 land usage to be replaced with Title 15 Development Code as advertised with the Code Piqua project.
Go ahead with the staff report.
The Code Piqua project has been a 4-year effort to rewrite the development standards for the city of Piqua. These larger updates happen about once every 30 years, with the last major code update taking place in 1996. And there have been several revisions that have happened since then, but the bulk of it happened more than, gosh, how old am I? About 30 years ago. The development code draft was first written by Code Studio, which is an Austin-based firm who specializes in urban design and form-based code writing. The city planner, that is me, I worked to remold the draft into something that works for Piqua's context. Not everything that works in one city works well in another city, and we also have our own unique situation and our own unique problems. So the code has underwent a big revision just from that, and then went around to lots of other staff members to provide comment on. We did have our engineering staff go through line by line to provide really detailed comments on the latest draft. The planning commissioners were given the first edition of this draft back in December of 2021. Provided a lot of great feedback, so there was a lot of information that went into this, and I think that there was a really unique and big advantage in having this be such a long process, because along the way received a lot of development proposals and a lot of just regular phone calls from people who want to know what they can do with their properties. And a lot of that thinking of comparing to, oh, here's what you can do with the existing code, could something change for the new code, went into those revisions. So what I wanted to do, rather than go through any really big specifics tonight, you all have an Exhibit A. It's just one copy. The rest is all going to be online. It's pretty sizable. There's a lot of graphics. It's a little bit easier to navigate than our current code is. But I just wanted to answer a few questions that were floated previously. One about formatting. How is the new code going to be formatted online? So we publish our code document through American Legal Publishing. It'll still work the same way, and there's going to be an additional copy that is in PDF form. So if you're looking for the really buttoned up version that looks really good with the pictures, you can just download the PDF copy. If you're looking to link to really, to particular parts of the code to send on to people, you can use the American Legal Publishing, and it works well in other jurisdictions. I think it'll work just fine here. Next steps with adoption. Today's March 14th. This is the Planning Commission hearing for recommendation. On March 21st, next week, the City Commission will do the first ordinance reading for this change. On April 4th, the City Commission will do their second reading. April 18th, the City Commission will do their third reading, and that is where they vote for adoption. There is a 30-day period for additional challenges or questions or concerns about the nature of how it passed. If there are legal challenges, that's what that 30-day period is for. But we will accept, because this has been such a long process and we do have people waiting in the wings for the new code, we'll accept some zoning permit applications at April 18th and not issue those permits until May the 18th. After that, and I would like to say that everybody is able to look up their own zoning online, both the drafted code and their existing zoning. They're both available on the development maps, which is part of the Piqua page on the internet. So we've got several really useful maps on there that include zoning information, ward information, lots going on there. I think the only thing I wanted to make sure we mention is that there was a transportation plan component to this. That's our next step, is to get that passed. There's some revisions that should be done. It's been another 2 years since we've really taken a hard look at it together as a community. And we have other code amendments that need to be revised, or code sections that need to be revised that are outside of the development code, outside of that Title 15. So we've got the right-of-way management, nuisance, and trees chapter that I think could use quite a bit of revision and just updating. So you might see that coming your way in the future for evaluation. I am happy to answer any questions, but I just wanted to say thank you for all of your hard work throughout the years as this has gone on.
Thank you. I think the commissioners, I have had a lot of time to review this, provide any comments. It's been a very excellent effort getting to this point, and good procedure. So at this time, I have no comments. Are there any comments from the commissioners or questions?
I'd like to thank you and the committee for all the work I know you guys have put in. It was a lot and considerable, so I know we appreciate it, and I'm sure once everybody gets used to it, they will as well.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, we have no applicant. Is there anyone present that would like to present any facts for or against resolution number PC 9-23? We have one.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michael Sherry. I live at 430 Fox Drive. I second that. I spoke with Kirsten quite a bit about this on different properties I own and how they're going to be impacted, and she was very helpful in answering my questions. And I believe overall it's a good move to get it updated. I am here tonight requesting that you make an adjustment to this code. and that is to remove the high-impact use that currently allows rock quarrying inside of our city limits. 14% of the land currently inside the city of Piqua is owned by a rock quarry company or one of its affiliates, and this land is currently sitting there waiting to be mined. There's no efforts on this land to be marketed for any other type of development other than rock quarrying. This land has been held for some of it for decades, waiting to be mined, and that land is pretty much destroyed once they're done. There's no end use to it, and it makes a big impact on the land inside of our city when that happens. And I believe this is one reason why our city has experienced pretty stagnant growth over the past 40 years, because a lot of that land is developable land that has nothing on it currently, and it's prime developable land that's being just held by a mining company waiting to be used. And I believe there's no better time than now. You know, we go over this once every 30 years, like Kirsten says, to update these zoning regulations to remove the high-impact use of rock quarrying from our city, and therefore opening up hundreds of developable, prime developable land for positive development, for housing and for businesses that can be used for future generations to come. I've obtained over 25 signatures from business leaders in our community who agree with me on this behalf. I've got the names if you guys would like to see them. And I just ask as a result that you remove that high impact use from our zoning regulations code Piqua for rock quarrying. I think failure to do so will result in Piqua to continue to experience stagnation instead of the vibrant growth that our communities around us have experienced.
Any questions from the commissioners?
Do you have a copy of the list?
I do. Can I come forward?
Yeah. You ever a copy? These are the people that have,
Anyone else?
I've seen
I
it
think I
before.
saw it last time,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any questions from the commissioners? Thank you.
Thank
Hearing
you.
none.
If I may
Anyone
comment too
else?
on,
What?
may I make a comment on
Sure.
how that would happen in the future? So just like, and Mr. Sherry and I spoke about this, and I'm not opposed in any way to making future amendments to the code. That's not a difficult thing. It's about really capacity and making really large revisions and edits to the draft once it comes to this point. It just takes a lot more time and focus. I really didn't want to come in here and tool around with it and mess something up to a large degree, because there's a lot of cross-references within here. So that's one item. And the other thing I think that the community should be aware of is that I think I've learned quite a bit over the last year of controversial things that have come before the commission, the planning commission, and within the draft there is a new provision to allow when a really large item, a topical item comes before you, and we get some feeling that it's going to be a big focus, and maybe what we don't want to do is guarantee that the applicant can come as a one-stop to the planning commission and present, and then you vote, and you have to hear everything all at the same time, and it's the first time the community is hearing really everything. It just makes for kind of a hot, an overheated situation. So to alleviate that, and this was a pretty simple thing to make sure we did, we can recommend that applicants come and give a presentation, and then the following month we have public, we hear the public's opinion on things the month after, and that's when the vote would happen. So that is a change that I think procedurally is going to do a lot to help in certain situations. It's not about the rock quarry in particular, but it will be useful in many given circumstances.
So an applicant, so someone could come before so they would apply to staff to be put on the agenda to discuss an issue?
Well, no,
How
it's
does
not.
that
It's
work?
not for issues. It's for applicants who are applying for special uses or rezoning. So it's for those things in particular. Now, if staff can recommend that it goes for 2 hearings. It's really on the applicant to choose that option. It's usually in the best interest of everybody to do things that way. The chair or the planning commission can also request that we table it and take a beat. But the magnitude of certain proposals really lend itself to that kind of procedure, whereas a lot of things do not require that level of it shouldn't take 2 months to finish the process for almost everybody else. Where that can get a little bit, the reason it's just a recommendation is we don't want it to be too subjective on staff's part on what things are controversial to the community, but we want that option to be there. So that is a new flexible component to the code that hopefully answers to what the community is asking for.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone else present would like to present information in regards to resolution number PC 9-23?
Eva Silvers, 319 3rd Street. I'm in the same boat with Mike for another reason. We were talking about the aesthetics of Piqua, and I think one of the good reasons that we should probably do this with the code is we talk about aesthetics like our bike path, right? I spent the last 2 weekends up behind Kroger's with a small group cleaning that up. Piqua has a bike path that should be an attribute to the community, and we have lots of things, like Mike said, the future development land that's just sitting idle, and our bike path that connects different communities. Now, I found on our bike path we have some serious problems. It's being tagged. There's a lot of garbage in the streamways on both sides. Sanitation department worked really well with me on arranging pickups, but we ended up moving quite a lot out of there. So when we talk about bringing new industries to the community, one of the things that worry me is this part of this code, because when people are looking at our community, you know, if they're coming into a big hole in the ground. And we have so much more to offer. We work on Loch 9, we work on the riverfront, we have this enormous bike path, you know, and it's under construction and some here and there spots. But at the end of the day, we have all of this developmental land. We have great opportunity. We have an area that is prime for biking from city to city. So even if you work and live in Troy, work in Piqua, you know. So I don't think that it's a bad idea that we, you know, do add this to the code so that we can prevent this later, because we have a lot of land that could be developed immediately, but it's vacant, just sitting. So that's all I wanted to say. I did want you guys to know that we have some community members, and one girl in specific, Taylor Armstrong, she came up both weekends, and she's not even a Piqua resident, and she kicked in. We are going to continue them cleanups on the bike path. I'm going to continue to work with sanitation on them. I want everybody to know, though, that as far as our bike path goes behind Kroger's and Wood Street, there is a lot, and I'm talking bicycles, couches, TVs, radios, whole couches. So there's quite a bit up there that even though we're trying to get it out of there, we're going to need some extra resources on getting those larger items out, because trust me, I hiked that whole thing and drug things over the water, and there's no way we're getting a big wet couch out of there. It's impossible. So we'll continue to work on that, but I want, when people bring or think about bringing a business here, to look at everything we offer within the community. You know, the mall being bought is a great opportunity. Other businesses coming, great opportunity. So I want everything to look aesthetically pleasing. So that's all I have on that.
Thank you. Anyone else want to present information to the commission in regards to resolution number PC 9-23? Yep.
Good evening, Commissioners. Joshua Blackshire, Sherry Development. I just wanted to piggyback off of what Mike was saying there. You know, Kirsten's got, I think it's a good suggestion about, you know, a way of helping to alleviate these kinds of problems. But I think what Mike's getting at here is that we don't need those high impact uses in the city of Piqua. So it's not a matter of making it easier to discuss and potentially knock it down. What Mike wants to do is say, hey, this isn't good for the city of Piqua. This isn't good for economic development. Let's just put an end to it, period, full stop. So, you know, I give Kirsten credit for trying to come up with a good solution for it. I just don't think that's the perfect solution for it. That's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blackshire. Anyone else would like to present information to the commission in regards to resolution number PC 9-23? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Charlene Blair. I live on Wilshire Drive. I feel like I understand the purpose of what she said, but I also understand that the citizens of Piqua have those heated situations get created because there's not a precedent set for a general respect between our city leaders and our community members. And in order to kind of bridge that gap, I think it would be easier to set a precedence on what we're going to do, not what we might maybe do. And so an easy way to do that would be to set a focus group on what our community members would need for this, and then kind of set a precedence with the basis of that focus group to kind of figure out what ways we can go about things, ways we can set precedents, and ways that we can reevaluate as time goes on while already having the precedent set. Because as she said, we reevaluate this, every 30 years? So there's not been a lot of changes that anybody's proud of in Piqua within that 30 years. Not a lot. So, I mean, there's a lot of complaints. But something that was solid and foundational that was changed, that has not happened in that time frame. And if we bridge that gap so that way citizens can have that respect and that relationship and unity with the city leaders, then I feel like there will be a lot more to go off of, to build off of. And more community involvement, like Miss Ava said, that could be helpful to that too. But I feel like we have to have something to go off of because we really haven't, and there's not been a lot that has been developed within that 30-year period. So her idea is great, but I think that there needs to be something foundational for the community members who are requesting this and have been, and then we can reevaluate that later on, not so much put a maybe and a question mark in the air for them as of now.
Thank you, Ms. Blair. Anyone else like to speak either for or against resolution number PC 9-23?
I do have one question for Kristen. The existing land that the mining company owns for future mining, would that be grandfathered in if this was changed as these people were suggesting? I mean, they already have the land. Would that allow them to continue even if this change was done?
So the way prior approvals work for the code change is that anything that was approved with the existing code right now is set to go. I mean, they have their approvals, they were approved under a particular code, they're legal, and then if the code changes to not allow something in the future, then they move into this legal non-conforming status. And that doesn't really mean much until they stop using that piece of land within that way. And there are some mechanisms to perform expansions of those properties if they're legal non-conforming, they come to the Planning Commission, for example. But no, it doesn't rescind anything to change the code after somebody's received an approval.
Right. So what you're saying in plain English is that they can continue to mine even if this idea is put forth, correct? Is that what you're saying, right?
Yes, yes.
So this will not have any effect on all the land they have because it's already approved for that use. So this
Code Piqua will not have any effect on the approval of. Now it's in litigation, and there's a movement to potentially come back before the Planning Commission to rehear the special use. That would be under the existing code. So when somebody has put an application in, it's a bookmark on that code application. That said, nothing substantial has changed in Code Piqua at this time that would affect a quarry proposal. There's some landscaping standards that were already included, but I guess I'd have to think about that a little bit. But they get the option to work with the code that they first applied for. That is my understanding.
Yeah. So
So no, there's not, this is not quite the same, but if what Mr. Sherry is, basically what he's saying is, if a new proposal were to come, would we allow expansion of a quarry? Would we allow another new quarry?
right.
Those are his concerns too, and so,
So,
yeah.
so this idea would not affect what's already in the books?
Right.
So,
That's what my understanding.
yeah, and
That's what I think Kirsten did. say.
right, and that's what I thought too. So all the land that's already slated is already set, so any proposal wouldn't have a lot of effect, would it? Because there's not a lot of land available, right?
Well, no, if there's a process here where, okay, what we could do tonight is recommend approval of this to the
Right, right.
commission. But then there would be a process where someone like Mr. Sherry could present a request to change the code. That would be public. You wouldn't want to make a decision at that time. You would want to wait and have public notice and then let other interested parties present it. And so I think that's what you're talking about. Then it would go on the agenda, and then that would be part of the process to change the code.
Right.
Because there would, and that's, so right now, that's it's an excellent idea. We can, but I don't know that we want to hold up what we're going on right now.
No, I'm not suggesting, I'm just saying the suggestion to do this would have no effect on the land that's already established.
Right, it's all
today.
grandfathered in.
Right, that's,
Only if that land has received in the past a conditional use permit,
Special use, correct.
special use permit.
Right.
So if I have a piece of property that and I'm not talking about the one, let's just change gas stations. Let's make this a little easier. So I have a property where I bought this intending to buy a gas station or build a gas station. I didn't get my permit to build the gas station, and it's a conditional use and has to come through planning commission. A month later, the code changes, and in that zoning district, gas stations are no longer allowed. I didn't get my permit, so therefore I don't get to build my gas station because now the new code says I can't build my gas station. But if I bought that land, I applied for and received the permit under the existing code that allows gas stations, I can build my gas station unless there's a time frame on the length of a permit. If you don't start building, if there's an expiration date, as long as I start building, I can build my gas station.
And it's not really a building permit, it is a
It's a-
change of the use.
It's a zoning permit.
So that probably doesn't have an expiration. Once that's granted, then that goes with that property, because that property's been conditionally
Well,
approved.
it's however the code is written. I mean, there are some localities that if you don't start,
Well, building permits are 1 year. You have to start construction in 1 year,
right, but
but
there.
it's not that.
Right, but is there an expiration in the city code for zoning permits?
And for, once they've been issued, your time for construction to start is 6 months typically.
Right.
Um,
So if
the
you don't
extensions can be
start-
offered.
Start building your gas station within 6 months, and then the code changed, well, your zoning permit expired, so then you
changed
have
too.
now you have to go by what the new code said. If the new code says I can't have gas stations in that area, or a special use, then you can't have gas stations.
Right.
I think what you have suggested and the way you have it written, that gives everybody a chance to have that say that you guys were talking about and have that group express and organize and get together to come up here and talk to us about your either pros or cons to any particular situation. So, like we were talking, we don't want to hold this up and rewrite something when, and it may need rewritten eventually. I'm not saying it doesn't. What I'm saying is, for now, there's still a valid way to do what you want to do. And then maybe in that whole process, we say, okay, well, this obviously needs stricken or whatever in the process. So I think if we can let this due process go out, because we don't want to be talking about, stone cores tonight. This is about the whole zoning, the whole.
And if I may, just one more comment too, to answer to that question. Some of what we have a disadvantage of here in this process is that our comprehensive plan was passed in 2007. So that's often the process where you gather up it's a huge community engagement process. Lots of stakeholders, lots of invitations to speak about this. Since, I've become a planner, the technology for speaking with the public has improved substantially. So you can really, really get a good beat on what the community wants, and then you can alter your code to reflect that. And you don't need to do an entire zoning code update to follow every comprehensive plan. We just needed to in this case. We also don't, I don't want anybody to think that we aren't going to change this for the next 30 years. We'll change it as needed, anytime that a proposal is forthcoming.
Very good.
Does the code allow for anyone from the public, to propose to make a change
Yes.
to the zoning
Yeah,
code?
there's a text amendment process, and there's an application involved. You submit to the development department, and then it follows procedure. I would just say that a lot of revisions of codes require some study. We don't like to pass a certain code, have people operate one way, and then make a lot of adjustments that are unnecessary. But at the same time, this is a big document. There's plenty that has changed, and there's plenty that we might scratch our heads about, over the next couple of years and think, boy, that could use some refinement so that we can avoid X or Y situation again. So all things are possible there. It's procedural in nature.
Yeah. Any other comments from the commissioners? Are you redirect? What do you have?
Yeah, just to clarify some things. Michael Sherry, 430 Fox Drive. A couple things. So yeah, it won't prohibit their current operation from not operating anymore. I went in with that with Kirsten. I got a repair center downtown, and that's no longer, you can't build a new repair center downtown under this new code, but my current repair center can still operate because that's what it is. Unless we vacate that and turn it into a beauty salon, I can't then go turn it back into auto repair 2 years later. So yeah, that answers that question. I don't know if the solution of kicking the can down the road is really going to work. I feel like if we're updating our code, we need to update it to right now and not say, well, once we get this passed, we'll go ahead and consider this. I think it's a pretty hot topic amongst citizens in this town. And also, with the rock quarry, I think that, trying to catch my thought where I was going with that. If we don't do it now, I don't know how it will be done later on with the zoning code. So, and I did have another thought, but I have lost track of that. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments in regards to resolution number PC 9-23? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve PC 9-23.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve resolution number PC 9-23. The Planning Commission has studied the request, conducted a public hearing on the matter, and has established findings that indicate the proposed code amendment will not threaten the general health, safety, and welfare of the community and conforms to all other applicable plans and policies of the city. This time, could you poll the commissioners?
Gary Koenig,
Aye.
Shannon Brandon,
Aye.
Brad Buck,
Aye.
Eddie Harvey,
Aye.
Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number PC 9-23 is approved. Now moving on to resolution number 10-23.
A resolution requesting approval of construction documents for the reconstruction of Lincoln Street from West Ash Street to Park Avenue. I'm gonna clarify that a little bit. There's, on the staff report page, and maybe I can get to it here as well. We have, this is a map that comes from the first page of the construction documents. So from Boone Street to North Street, there existed a sinking condition of the road. The asphalt was sinking, and I'm not sure that's been resolved as to why that is, but it does involve a substantial lift to reconstruct that portion of the road. That was the impetus, I think, of this Lincoln Street reconstruction project. What you're seeing the rest of the way is a water main upgrade. Currently, there is a 3/4 inch water main, which is not a water main in most people's books, running along that road. And so there are residents who actually have connections to that 3/4 inch main, and we'll see a substantial improvement when that comes into, modern standards of, I don't actually know how that happened to begin with, but this is a good thing for those residents, but it's also very disruptive. We try to minimize that disruption, but we just want people to understand that this project is coming over the summer. The way that noticing is going to happen, I sent mailed notices out to everybody just to give everybody a heads up that this project's on the way, but most of the people who live there were already aware. I've just spoken to several on the phone, and they casually mention it, so they know it's coming. Everybody will again receive a notice about a month prior to the start of construction. So we think that's gonna happen starting in early summer and run through the summer. So everything that is not part of that Boone to North segment really just represents a water main upgrade and then resurfacing. And the Boone to North Street segment is a full rebuild of the road, and I believe it's including sidewalks. So you see the road profile section in the construction documents. Now, this is all being handled by the engineering wing of the development department. If people have really difficult questions, I'm just gonna take them down and give you answers from them in the future, but that is who you'd want to reach out to for detailed information about the construction schedule. Kenton Kaiser, Bob Grazier.
And the recommendation.
Staff recommends approval of the resolution. This has been reviewed by multiple departments at this point.
Any questions from the commissioners? Hearing none, anybody present want to speak for or against resolution number PC 10-23? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve PC 10-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on resolution number PC 10-23. The Planning Commission has studied the request, conducted a public hearing on the matter, and has established findings that indicate the proposed construction will not threaten the general health, safety, and welfare of the community and conforms to all applicable plans and policies of the city, including the Complete Streets policy. At this time, could you poll the commissioners?
Gary Koenig,
Aye.
Shannon Brandon,
Aye.
Brad Buck,
Aye.
Eddie Harvey,
Aye.
Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number PC 10-23 is approved. Let's move on to resolution number PC 11-23.
A resolution requesting a recommendation for a code amendment to Chapter 90 animals to allow backyard chickens at residences within the city limits. All right, so you saw a previous draft at the previous Planning Commission meeting that has since been fully revised. It reflects, I think, many of the comments that were made. I guess I'd like to bracket some of this whole conversation and recommendation on my part with the history that this idea started with a petition in the community. It started with a former city commissioner who really was interested in having backyard chickens be legalized within the city. Currently, you're able to have them, but only if you own five acres of land, which is really basically nobody in the city, nobody residential. That's only agricultural tracts within the city. I mean, societal context, I think people are fairly aware of this, that within several cities, many cities within the state of Ohio and nationally, a lot of jurisdictions have been considering legalizing backyard chickens for, typically for a sustainable food culture. That's sort of the cultural background of that. And what we see in Ohio, there is a lot of contradictory information on the internet. First of all, there's a backyards chicken website, and I went and started there with a map of what jurisdictions legalize, or what jurisdictions have legal backyard chickens ordinances on the books. Some of those things that are marked, they are not really legal. Others, the trend I'm seeing in Ohio is that large cities have legalized backyard chickens. Smaller cities and suburban areas have sometimes heard these proposals and turned them down. That's kind of what I've seen. I included some text examples of the language from larger cities. There tends to be this interest in a larger city, especially since you don't have a rural fringe like right there. There are, within a mile of the center of your town, you're out in the rural area. If you're in a larger city, this sustainable notion of food agriculture may be more pressing to you because of that ability to access it. So some of the language that changed from the last draft I wanted to make sure that that if this passes, it was addressing animal welfare. So it's got minimum square footages for chickens. It has language that addresses predators, raccoons getting into enclosures, and a little bit of detail on how staff would present health information to anybody who applies. Now, getting into kind of the content of this, Mr. Koenig, actually, you started to investigate this through the Miami County Health Department. I reached out to Jane Thomason as well and spoke in addition to their epidemiologist, got some feedback from them, asked questions about diseases that come from poultry, and trying to get some understanding of there's a lot of information online about what diseases are associated with chickens. It's difficult to determine to the extent those diseases affect people who are not directly handling chickens. That's sort of the difficult question I think about this entire policy decision, is whether or not having a backyard chicken in one yard is going to affect the neighbor or not. And I would say that most people would say they're not interested in the noise. Sometimes I write that idea off because of dogs, and I think, well, comparatively, are we increasing that, or, what's the number of people who are going to really have chickens? Is it going to be a noise issue if we don't have roosters? I don't know. There's contradictory information on that. But I think it's the health question that really comes to the heart of things. If somebody has a chicken coop in their backyard, is the neighbor at risk of contracting salmonella or campylobacteria or histoplasmosis? So some of those, the answer is basically no. With salmonella, that comes from eggs from the chickens, or touching chickens and then touching your face or your mouth. With histoplasmosis, the health department kind of declined to give me a solid answer, because what happens with histoplasmosis, it is a fungus that is present in soils that are heavily inundated with bat droppings or chicken droppings. So feces in the soil creates great conditions for this this fungus to create spores that is present in the bedding of chickens. And when you are changing the bedding out, that's where you're going to introduce that to the air and let it go airborne. So, Mr. Wilson, last time you brought up infection of the eyes, absolutely could happen. and your lungs. Those are concerning things. Most people have actually been exposed many, many times to it. So it's a risk tolerance question, because it doesn't cause severe illness in most people, but older people, younger people, and immunocompromised people are those that are most likely to develop really serious illnesses from histoplasmosis. So that is I don't know if that's even a very good introduction. It's a big topic, and there's a lot of opinions on either side of this. I've heard from people who really want this, who've been waiting for passage so that they can do what they want with their backyard and have a sustainable means of disposing of their food waste and collecting eggs. And then I've heard from residents who just think this is very much inappropriate for a city context. So all that said, my recommendation is based on how well or ill-suited I think this exact draft is. I think the draft is, if we were going to have chickens, I think this is a decent way to set it up. I think the language that's in there is pretty good. I'm still open to any recommendations that people have for amendments to that. The City Commission is very interested in hearing the topic, so I don't know that they're going to wait a really long time, but I'm happy to hear anybody's suggestions on what to do next.
What did you say about roosters?
Roosters would not be allowed within
allowed.
the city limits.
Awesome, good answer.
What was the staff recommendation? I didn't hear that.
Approval of the request.
Approval of the request.
So one of the changes I think you had, I want to be clear that you did add a chicken run outside the coop, correct?
That's correct.
That wasn't in the original.
Yeah, that's right. So originally there was language that I think spoke just to having a coop, and the coop is raised off the ground. Runs were prohibited. Now runs are, I think when people look at backyard chicken coops, they see a coop with an attached run. That's kind of what we're looking for.
Right.
You'd also need to install a
Top.
it's a thicker gauge wire mesh around the outside, and that prevents raccoons from entering, and then child-proof, raccoon-proof locks on the entryways.
How about a top?
Yes, a top is, for a run, yes. It needs to be enclosed to
Right.
prevent invasion of predators of any kind. So that's, and protection of the chickens as well. So there's a ventilation requirement for the coop, but anything that's exposed to the air needs to have that thick gauge wire around it so that things can't get in.
Just to be clear, what we're doing here tonight is just a recommendation to the city commission. The approval authority rests with the city commission. So for people that are present, if you present information in regards to backyard chickens to the planning commission, that will affect our judgment. But with regards to the actual change in the ordinance, you likely will have to go to a city commission meeting to make your voices heard. It will affect our recommendation here, but I just want to make that clear. We're only making a recommendation. City commission, like the city planner said, may go forward regardless. If we table it tonight, they may go forward anyway. So, okay.
Kirsten, did the health department say anything specifically, based on the hundreds of thousands of chickens that have been slaughtered on the bird flu and things like that? How is that handled in a urban situation where you may have 10 chickens or whatever?
So the code amendment would allow up to 6, no more than that, and no slaughtering on the property. So people would, I think, kind of have to think of their chickens as being for eggs, and when they're approaching the end of their life, you're talking about veterinary care, not slaughtering the chickens.
Or you take them to somebody that does that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure there's other options, but you can't do that on your property.
Yeah. So the bird flu thing, if there's an outbreak or something, is there a requirement to get tested or?
Oh, I see. Well, so there's, so the way that works, there's a few different things. From my research, avian flu it affects really large scale farms where birds are in close contact because there's a it's, a transmissible disease from chicken to chicken. And then sometimes it jumps to the human population. I'm not an epidemiologist, but that's my basic understanding.
Well, it can also be spread by someone who works with chickens.
Mm-hmm.
And they
Right.
would go in somewhere else and take it with them.
That's true. So, I mean, there's nothing here or nothing that the city would do to prevent somebody from going to work on a larger chicken farm and then going to touch somebody's
Going
backyard chickens.
Home to town and.
Yeah, yeah.
Big
So
chicken.
that wouldn't happen. As far as reporting goes, that is something that I discussed with the health department. So any of these diseases have a reporting requirement. When you go to the doctor's office, and you say, I'm feeling ill, I've got the stomach flu, or something's happened, and if you get if you get tested for salmonella, and they find that it's positive, there's a reporting requirement so that they can trace or try to trace the source of that. So that could happen with chickens or anything else. Avian flu is the same way. Because all diseases are the same way. They want to know what's going on. So if they're detecting that there's a novel flu situation, they're gonna know that through the public health department.
Is there a defined, at the end, it says something about the development director can deal with any nuisances or all that. It's kind of left open on how many legitimate complaints you have. Is there a way to,
That's
instead
fair.
of letting it go on forever, do we need to define how many in a time frame, or is that something that other cities have dealt with?
So this is not framed like a license program. It's not framed like, you get 3 complaints from your neighbors, because I can see that being you issue a zoning permit, somebody constructs a coop, and then you start receiving complaints. I think that warrants investigation just like any other nuisance complaint. So go and see for yourself, gather some evidence. It's not really a number of complaints issue, but what's the fact of the matter on the ground? Is it clean? Is it dirty? Are they not doing what they are supposed to be doing? Because there's a lot of detail in here about how they're supposed to be dealing with waste and the frequency they're supposed to be cleaning their coops. But for due process purposes, that is and because this is not a kind of a license model, and the city is not going to expend a ton of resources going out to do lots of inspections and keep up a license, although there will be initial inspections of new coops, and then investigation of any complaints as normal. It's going to follow any normal process of, hey, that dog is not being treated well. Okay, well, we're going to go look at that. And if you are not coming into compliance with standards of the code, then you're given a code violation notice. And if you don't clean that up, then you're taken to court, and that is how that matter is resolved. So there's a path of resolution that goes that way. Most of the time, things don't land in court, and you get voluntary compliance when people receive code violation notices.
Okay.
So, just a comment, in the draft, 9003 A2 references except as otherwise provided in 90.05B. There is, when you rewrote the code, you eliminated 90.05B.
Say again.
So you need to rewrite and proofread your document.
Can you reference that again?
90.03A2 states,
I see.
except as otherwise provided in 90.05B. If you look down your document, you deleted in its entirety 90.05B.
You're right.
Another question, which is more substantive, is when you go down to 90.07B chickens, you say persons dwelling in a single unit residential property under 5,000 square feet may raise up to 6 chickens at their residence. The question is, okay, in 150, which is the zoning, we talk in terms of lots. Here you're using the term residential property. I believe that's a legal term. I've seen references where that includes the building and the lot. When in R 150, the zoning, only in residential district, what is it, 2, will you allow single-family structures, and they have to be greater than 5,000 square feet. So I think is that your intent, or am I missing something? It seems here you're only allowing chickens in actually lots that violate the code, or were grandfathered in.
I see. Okay,
And
so, yeah.
And that's a pretty substantive thing. So I would say if we're going to go vote on this, we vote as it's stated, okay? But you may want to revisit that in the future.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and fair questions. So you're right.
What was your intent? What was not your intent, but can you
Yes.
talk to the intent of the attorney that wrote this, or are you able to? Would you have to contact them?
No, I can definitely give some comment. And I think these are fair criticisms. So the first thing you noted was the misplaced reference. That does need change. So I deleted, but actually just moved up into the same section, the 90.05. So all of those conditions are still in the code. It just needs to be except as otherwise noted for C below. So that would be 90.03 C. So that's your first comment. And as far as the second one goes, I think that the idea here is to say if you have a lot, which I think we can change that word property to lot under 5,000 square feet. Yeah, I think so too.
It aligns with the definitions in the code, the new code and the old code.
I agree with you on that note, absolutely. And I also think that now that I'm looking at it, I probably have caused some confusion on what you would do if you had a lot that was over 5,000 square feet but under 5 acres. So probably I need to have just a provision that says under 5 acres. If you have a residential lot that is under 5 acres, then this applies to you. If you have a residential lot that is over 5 acres, you were allowed to have chickens to begin with. So I think that's what this means.
If I was reading this and not part of the commission,
yeah,
I wouldn't have come to this meeting because, I would say, well, okay,
sure.
okay. But you can modify, I guess, before you go to the city commission.
Yes, and I will.
Or you have to get with the attorney that wrote it or whatever.
Right.
Don't
right.
act independent. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Whatever
for
you
that.
want to do. Okay.
You mentioned, Kirsten, varmint intrusion, like raccoons and things.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the only animal you mentioned, or? And the only reason I say this is even where, I don't know if you know where I live or not, but Piqua's a relatively small city, and right adjacent to us is farms and woods and,
Yeah.
and everything else. And we have a lot of wooded areas inside the city. And I know that even deer will get in somewhere like that because they smell the chicken feed. And I have seen personally coyotes in my lawn, foxes in my lawn, God knows how many raccoons. I mean, they could have a force of 100 raccoons come down on something. There's so many of them. So I don't know if that affects anything or not, if it affects the construction or not. It's just something that, maybe it's just as easy as adding other varmints to the thing that they have to be aware of.
They're very large animals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just something to think about.
I think that's a good, fair comment. I think the only other kind of vermin, I know that hawks eat chickens, those kinds of things. So the enclosure should protect chickens from that. The health department commented on, there's a study that says that where backyard chickens are permitted, you see a correlation of increased rats
Freaking
in that.
Lots
in the
of
city.
rats.
So rodents for sure are an issue, and that's usually because of the feed. So you have to put your chicken feed in a very rodent-proof enclosure. You can't just leave it in a bag. You can't just, and you can't. Your enclosure needs to be good enough to prevent them from coming into the pen themselves. So I think that's something that happens. I've seen a lot of information about owners talking about how do I solve that problem. So it exists. It's not.
Bought a bunch of bird feed one year and put it in a big Rubbermaid tote with a lid, and that spring I checked it out and it was totally empty, and there's a big hole in the side where the squirrels got in, and so
Yeah. That's
you
expensive.
gotta be aware of everything.
Lots of possums in Piqua. Skunks,
Skunks, that's for sure.
yeah. Okay. Any other comments from the commissioners?
I think I saw a Bigfoot one night.
I haven't seen the Bigfoot yet. So. Open it to public comment. Anyone want to speak for or against resolution number PC 11-23?
Yes, hi, Commission. My name is Paige Steeman. I live out on Madison Avenue. I, along with a lot of people in the year 2021 when COVID was around, there was some discussion from the commission that they were allowing people to have chickens. So I, along with other people, we went out and we had gotten 6 chickens along with a lot of people in town, because the people out at the farm said that was okay. They were delivering coops and all of that. I had chickens for over a year in our backyard. There was a lot of things that we had to look up. That one of the things that you definitely do not do is you do not leave your feed down. You've just put out enough feed for the chickens to eat, and then you keep the rest of it put up. We had them out there for almost a year before we received a visit from the code enforcer, and we did not have any type of raccoons. Of course, we have 3 dogs, so that raccoons never got in our backyard. I also, when cleaning their coop, you have to wet it down, and then you have to spray it with bleach before you. Simple common sense things that we can do, that I think that if we do incorporate this, there's simple common sense education that you can do, so you don't have, before you clean your coop out, you've got to spray it down with bleach. That prevents the spores from being spread out. There's things that you can do to be a good steward, to be a good neighbor, so if you do have your backyard chickens, you can do it in a way that's responsible. You can do it in a way that's not going to draw rodents and that. We've never had any raccoons in our backyard, and when it flooded, there were raccoons up in our tree and our chickens were just out back. But one thing I do think is very important is the free ranging time. I do think that's something that the chickens are going to need, whether they're in a run or if you have a privacy fence and you let them free range, you're going to have a lot less smell. You're going to have healthier chickens. They're going to be able to forage more. You will not have any fleas in your backyard. You'll have a lot less mosquitoes, and you'll have better quality food. So that's what we were kind of looking at. And getting down to the brass tacks of when we all started talking about this was there's a group of us that were creating a train of food supplies from the northern Ohio right down to the southern Ohio. A small group of us. If we've got substations being attacked, we have got all kinds of train derailments, we've got things going on in our community. We never know. We've got old transformers that could go at any minute, and our grocery supply, do we have enough storage of food to supply the city of Piqua? So that's when we started talking about trying to get sustainable food stores in place in case of an emergency. Certain people in certain sections of town, I would be willing to be a pilot if need be, which I will suggest to the commission, that we would have a sustainable food source. Chickens is the easiest thing that I could think of starting off that we could use in our town if there is an emergency or the grid goes down, which our grid is very, very I think there's no argument that our grid structure across, not only locally, but in the United States is very, very weak and has been in need of an overhaul for a very long time. So that's why a lot of us preppers, whatever you want to call us, we've tried to put in things in place, but we want to protect our community, because if our community doesn't have enough food and we don't get something in place, such as backyard chickens, and I think that's where a lot of the community had started doing that. But, you know, if they stay in a run, this is what will happen. I watched a video that was talking about a cycle that chickens go through when they get bored or they're confined to small spaces. That it leads to illness, illness leads to stress, stress leads to parasites and infestations. But if you let them go out in free range and you have a privacy fence or have a way that you can keep them enclosed enough to where they can go out and scratch, you have a lot less smell. You have a lot, they need the dust baths, you know, to where they can take their own baths. They dig and they throw dirt on themselves. That's the chicken's way of keeping them clean. Keeping them in an enclosure is I mean, I guess they could dig up and get some. I guess if that's what we'll take, that's what we'll take. But we had so much joy watching these chickens. I would not have been a chicken person had you told me this 10 years ago, but there is a lot that we need to keep as far as ventilation factors go. There's a lot of things that I want us to be able to do right, not only to raise healthy food, but to do what's right by the animals as well. So, and in all my time in that first year, there was a lot that we learned. There was a lot that we had to trial and error with when we were going through this until we got the code enforcer thing, and then we had to kind of change up that. But we never got sick. I mean, we had to learn how to clean it. We never got. I don't think we ever got salmonella. And I started researching. You can't get avian flu. It only goes chickens to chickens, correct?
I think occasionally it jumps. That's when
No,
we
it
have
can
a public.
jump. At least
Well,
that's what
But
the
it's not
documentation
usually
says,
backyard.
and it's fatal.
6 months ago when I was looking it up, it said it couldn't jump from human to human. And then when I looked it up just this last week, it said it was rare, but it could jump to a human. So now
My
they're
information
changing.
was from the internet. I don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said it so.
It's okay, because I know how things go. But I really hope that this gets passed to where we can at least have some things in place so we can be able to provide a way that the community can provide a way if things do go south. We've got a way to provide food for our citizens as well as decreasing that chaos.
Thank you.
Ma'am?
Thank you very much.
I have one question.
Yeah.
In all your research then and all your studies, have you found like a pamphlet or something that perhaps could be purchased by the city telling the proper methods of care of all these, of the chickens that we could, you know, if we found out somebody wanted to, maybe this is an application process where there's a small application to get chickens, and then we can give them the code and this pamphlet of information at the same time, and they would have it.
Yeah, I could definitely get that. There is a, 4-H provides the paperwork is what she told me. And I also have a lot of YouTube videos. There's a lot of very good YouTubers out there that gives out a lot of really good information on chicken care and how to do it, what not to do. But I know you want printed copies.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we can definitely find something and get some things together for you guys
Give it
as
to the
well.
city.
Yeah, give it
City planner.
Give it to Kirsten. Kirsten, is it
Kirsten.
an application situation?
Yes, so to have backyard chickens, you have to have a coop. You have to apply for a zoning permit to do that.
That'd
going
be
to- we're
that'd
going
be a
to
great time to give them the information. that we
Yeah,
need
and
to
that's specified that information's, so because there's so much misinformation, and I watch a lot of YouTube videos myself
there
to try to
is.
figure this, get some context, but,
They don't want us raising our own food. They
well,
don't
no,
want
the
that.
YouTube, you're right, the YouTube videos will show you a coop and show you how to do a lot of things, so that was a really helpful resource for me. But given that there's a lot of written misinformation about diseases and what do you do for care, contradictory information out there, two sources are available. We've got our public health network and the CDC. So the CDC, you provided guidelines, actually,
So trustworthy.
yeah, and Miami County, well, okay. Well, Miami County Department of Health, there's a CDC really easy guide on, you know, what it is that chickens are associated with, how do you, wetting, the bedding, this kind of, these
Yeah.
basic pieces of advice. 4-H, I think, is run or informed heavily by the OSU Extension Office. So that is another really good office for agricultural information that we have.
Maybe a
in-
good place for information too.
Sure.
Yep.
for-
Yes,
for this
but I
kind of
really
thing.
think we need to be able to allow our chickens to free range a bit. And if we have to make the coop or the enclosure to where I can put a net over our backyard, we could do that too. Would that be considered?
Or you clip the wings.
Huh?
Clip the wings, they won't fly out.
Oh, I got a huge privacy fence. They never fly out.
Well, so one, the privacy fence or the landscaping is required around, you know, if you're going to have a coop, if you don't already have a mature landscaping, you're gonna have to put in a fence. If you already have mature landscaping, then maybe you could do a different kind of fence perhaps to keep them in. The intent in this draft is you keep your chickens in the enclosure pretty much all of the time. But there's no specification that they must be in there 24/7. But if complaints are, you know what I mean?
Yes,
You'd see a complaint-driven kind of response to abusing that situation.
yeah,
So
understood.
that's how the draft is currently written, so that's
Okay,
something people should
thank
be
you very
aware
much.
of.
Anything else?
No, thank you though.
How many
Thank you.
people are gonna talk about backyard thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm the one that did the petition, so we had 75 to 100 signatures on our,
Yes,
Petition.
75 to 100. How many were children?
huh?
How many
Only
were-
one.
I heard it was all children. Isn't that awful? The rumors in town.
I listed their phone numbers and their addresses, so
Okay.
they're,
Thank you very much.
and one of them was from a police officer's wife, so.
So how many are gonna talk about backyard chickens? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Do you still need to at this point?
Okay, so I'm gonna limit the time to 4 minutes per person. There are 5 people that said they want to talk. Now, that doesn't mean that after 5 people talk, someone else can't get up. Now, if a commissioner asks you a question, your time could be increased. But I'm gonna time it at 4 minutes because it's, you know, we want to move this along. Okay, so, next person, who else would like to speak for or against resolution number PC 11-23?
Hi, I'm Charlene Blair from Wilshire Drive in Piqua. I wanted to address just a few things that are kind of talked about, like as far as the neighbors, maybe issues that they would have with like sounds or smells and things like that. And I feel like there are natural smells that comes with chickens, just like there are for fertilizers that I could hire a landscaper to put in my yard and you guys would just have to deal with it. There are things like sounds, but not really. Actually, it's very uncommon for somebody to even know that there are chickens that exist unless there are also roosters, unless you actually see them. So they're not very loud. Then as far as there are things like, unless there's like abuse or a surplus of chickens, I feel like that kind of shouldn't really be able to be regulated because the time and resources that our city would waste over something that can't actually be regulated or stopped. Like, it's like, okay, if somebody has more than 3 dogs, they're not allowed to do that. Okay, I understand that. But there are things that you can get cited with, but like, coyotes can come and attack my little dog, and there's nothing that you guys can do to tell me that I have to do something certain. You can give recommendations, and hopefully people would listen because they love their animals, but, I mean, we don't want to over-regulate it either, but there are fair points with enclosures and things like that that we should try to do, and information we should try to give. But as a neighbor, as far as, like, airborne things or whatever. Like, there are plenty of things that as a dog owner I could spread. I could spread fleas to my whole neighborhood, and whenever it goes in somebody's house and bites them or jumps in their mouth and creates an intestinal parasite, that's going to be their problem, and there's nothing that prevents that from happening. But it's very rare, just like anything that would come from chickens would be very rare, and hardly something that would occur. Now, further on, zoning laws in general, the history of them was they were created to protect homeowners in residential areas from devaluation during the Industrial Revolution. So this is something that kind of actually deindustrializes us and kind of brings us back to our roots. These were to prevent basically like somebody building a gas station or a factory in somebody's backyard. It was not something that I feel like our forefathers ever imagined, a world that we would need permission to feed our families with the food that we grew and raised. So with the understanding of the history behind zoning laws, I believe that we do owe it to ourselves to continue to protect from further commercialism and to continue to protect our freedoms, as well as to continue to endorse our citizens, their personal freedoms by maximizing their concentrated resources that are ultimately beneficial. And there are many things that you can look up scientifically that are beneficial to the mental, physical, and overall economic and ecosystem health with chickens, and how just the general, they make the soil more healthy, which makes the water quality more healthy and the air more healthy. And our air quality and water quality are not great in this city, so that would be very beneficial to people. And it's not a high commodity for people to want chickens, so it's not really going to be that detrimental if we allow it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Anyone else like to speak for or against resolution number PC 11-23?
Hi, my name is Alicia, and I live on Manier Avenue.
Alicia, what's your last
Richardson.
name?
Richardson.
Richardson.
Yes. I just want to say that most people that own chickens already know how to take care of them, and I know that there needs to be certain things in place so that can continue. There are surrounding cities that already are doing this, and Covington does have a policy kind of like what you were suggesting. But you would just clean up after your chickens just like you would your dogs, your cats, anything like that. And that's really all I have to say.
Thank you very much, Ms. Richardson. Anyone else?
Hi, my name is Pam Hawes, and I live on Cleveland Street. I had chickens when I lived in the country, and I would love to have them in town. And most people that keep chickens or even keep birdseed don't have to put them in plastic containers. I worked in retail before, and we actually had rats that would go and chew through things. You just don't do that. And when I had my chickens, I still have the metal cans. I'd love to have chickens in town. And I agree with the lady. We need to let them free range just a little bit. As long as we have a fenced-in yard, and the neighbors don't mind, you know what I mean? I think you might find that there's some chickens all over Piqua that people have been hiding for years. I've seen some of it. I won't say who or where or what, but some of them do hide them. But and I just wanted to be legal about it. But having a few chickens in the backyard, and like I said, just let them free range a little bit. I had them in the country, and even when I lived in the country, I didn't let them free range all day because of predators. But and I agree, the raccoons and the groundhogs are really bad here in the city. But I just would like to see them helpful for the children. The eggs are wonderful, and like the other ladies were saying, you got your eggs, especially with what we had happen to with eggs last winter. That's just crazy. But and I had a coop before, and people that have the coops learn how to clean them, keep them clean, and dispose of the waste, and I just don't see a problem, with most of the people that live in town. Thank you.
Ma'am,
Thank-
just so you don't think I'm totally stupid, the plastic can was in my garage,
Yeah.
and it ate through the garage door, and then the plastic can.
Like
so,
I said, I worked in retail for 14 years.
Yep.
And You wouldn't believe what goes on in the back rooms.
Oh, I will.
I mean, they do. They type.
I thought I knew what went on in my garage.
Yeah,
so,
but no, this was a store, and they were getting in there. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
We had chickens. I used to live in the country as well, and we had chickens my whole life, so that doesn't surprise me. But
Well,
I
and
had
if-
to laugh because they ate the corn right out of my cornhole game too.
Yeah, they'll eat through anything. Yeah, and then that's the other thing too. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know when Piqua banned them, but I know my stepmother was telling me she lived in a big city, and they had chickens when she was growing up, and she lived in the city.
A lot of times in the old days, they didn't have
Well,
a
this
lot
was
of
in the
zoning laws.
60s and 70s. This
Yeah.
was in
Been
the
over
60s and
20
70s when
years
she was
anyway
growing up.
that they
Huh?
were- It's been well over 20 years.
Okay, so you did allow them for a while, and then.
No, I didn't say that.
Well, there was
Oh,
no
okay.
mention of them for a while, is what that
Okay.
was. Yeah.
Well, like I said, my stepmother had told me that, and she graduated high school, I think in 71, 72, but they had backyard chickens then. And she lived in, she lived in town, not in this town, a bigger town here, city in here in Ohio. So I don't know when they banned it, so.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Saul. Anyone else?
Eva Silvers, 319 Third. So I only
What
wanted.
was the name?
Eva Silvers, 319 Third.
Silvers? Okay.
I only wanted to add to that, as Paige was saying, sometimes to prevent mites, they will get out and fluff around in the dirt, and that's just their way of cleaning it. Chickens are actually not just a form of food and opening a door to community gardens, things of that nature, but 4-H does a lot of activity with chickens. They have a lot of information on chickens. A lot of entry-level children go through 4-H with chickens, so it's not just the ability to have our food and sustain food, but also we can work a pyramid with this. We can work with, like a lot of the empty lots, we're working towards having like a green area or a garden area. And on top of that, the kids that if they did sponsor a chicken for 4-H would get a lot more children in the community involved in 4-H because they would be able to sponsor that chicken and take care of it. So that's all I had to add to it.
Isn't 4-H mostly in the county?
4-H, you can enroll in 4-H anywhere, as long
Okay,
as it
but
is a districtal thing that is
Do most of the
available.
children in 4-H live in the county?
Mine did.
In
We
the
just
city?
kept our animals. Yeah, my sister lives on Elm, and they have for the last 5 years shown hogs.
Okay.
They've rented a farm to have their hogs at. They have to go out every day, walk them.
Hogs?
Hogs. Pigs.
We don't have
4-H
any
just
hogs
i-
in the city. I don't.
4-H
No.
just isn't about agriculture.
Right.
It's about science.
It is.
math.
They actually have 4-H has
photography.
contests with outfit designs, so it's a great way to kind of introduce your kids to that.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Silver. Anyone else want to speak for or against resolution number PC 11-23?
My name is Phil Wade. I'm at 919 Boone Street, and I'm against the free-range chickens or chickens in the city at all. I guess that I'm the only one here that's going to speak against it, but I still don't want to have the chickens, that for me to guarantee that my neighbor who has chickens is doing the right process of what you've said needs to be done. And if I don't know who's going to monitor that. Is it the police department? Is the health department? I'm an old man now, and I don't need to know that they didn't spray their coop before they turned the soil so that I could get the germs from it. So that's why I'm against it, so.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else want to speak for or against resolution number PC 11-23?
Russ Fashioner, 801 Forest Avenue. You asked about talking chickens, so I'm not going to talk chickens, I don't think, but I'm assuming this covers everything's been changed. The talks about cats and dogs on here on 90.03 C3. 2 dogs, 2 cats, or at least 3 months of age, or a total of 4 at any residence. My question there would be, at one time I think the city of Piqua had, you weren't allowed feeding cats. We got enough cats around this town. At what point, if someone's feeding cats and they got 3 or 4 cats coming to their house, they're feeding there, are they in violation of that? That might need to get reworded before commission. Something else I picked up in this is there's a lot of rules about chickens. And there's rules about rabbits. The rabbits didn't get changed a whole lot. I'm trying to decipher how big a lot you have to have rabbits. The rabbits have to be 75 feet or more away from a building. The chickens need to be 25. I can have 24 rabbits. I gotta clean the rabbits every day from April to November. And it just seems, again, I'm gonna go back to what the gentleman just said about who's gonna police this. So just, that's my comments and questions. And again, this goes to commission, not you guys to decide whether or not this happens. And thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak for or against resolution number PC 11-23? Hearing none. Is there any commissioner who'd like to say anything further? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution PC 11-23.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on resolution number PC 11-23. At this time, could you poll the commission?
Gary Koenig,
Nay.
Shannon Brandon,
Aye.
Brad Bupp,
Aye.
Eddie Harvey,
Aye.
Joe Wilson.
Nay.
Resolution number PC 11-23, as stated in the agenda, is approved. Let's move on to resolution number PC 12-23.
A resolution to appoint a planning commission member to the Board of Zoning Appeals for the 2023 to 2024 annual term. So just as you recall, we follow the city commission schedule for new appointments to our boards at this time rather than, January 1st. So the city commission reapproved Mr. Koenig's appointment to the planning commission, which means it's time for us to reappoint for the new year for the BZA.
So I'm currently the planning commission rep on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I really enjoy doing it. I have no.
I nominate her.
I have no issue.
Second.
Second.
We have a nomination and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to say that Shannon has done a great job the past year, and her background as a code enforcement at one time, part of her job was code compliance, and it does lend well to the BZA for sure.
And it's, I think what the planning commission member does is important for the Board of Zoning Appeals, and I appreciate all you've worked done in the past year and volunteering to go forward for another
And
year.
it's great, it's great that you like it.
Do you like it? So do we, this time, the planning commission member nominated has agreed to serve on the Board of Zoning Appeals until the next appointment is made in the spring of 2024. Shannon Brandon has been nominated. Hang on a second. By the Planning Commission and agreed to serve in this capacity if appointed by the City Commission. At this time, could you poll the commissioners?
You can have make a motion, please, or somebody.
We have a motion? Well, we had a motion and a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who was?
Yeah,
can
we
you
already had that.
Catch me
I
up.
made
It
the
was
motion
Brad.
and
It went
Eddie
like
seconded.
real fast.
Oh my gosh.
You don't mess around with those.
You're totally right. Who seconded? I apologize. Thank you, Eddie. Mr. Harvey. Okay. Ms. Shannon Brandon.
Aye.
Mr. Eddie Harvey.
Aye.
Brad Bupp.
Aye.
Gary Koenig.
Aye.
Joe Wilson.
Aye.
Resolution number PC 12-23 is approved. Thank you very much for volunteering for another year.
No problem.
At this time, that
Enjoy.
ends our agenda. Are there any further items?
No, not at this time.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned.
You're on the amazing ones, aren't we?
Boy, you were really quick there, Brad.
Holy.
Well, you were like, well, I
Once
kind
you
of like
said you
it.
enjoyed it, you were it.
Here, the mics.